Welcome back to Resilient Foundations, where we talk about how to survive when the leadership stakes are high. One of the things that affects teams and individuals in the teams pretty significantly is not understanding the why. When I was a kid, my mom always used to ask me, "Why are you the kid that always asks why?" Well, it's because if I understood the why, then I could make better decisions even when my parents weren't around. And in similar ways, our teams are structured the same way. Sometimes we might think teams are failing because they're not following the instructions, but maybe they're failing because they don't understand the why well enough to truly engage, to pivot correctly when things are unclear or there's ambiguity present, or they're under a crisis situation where things are moving quickly and they just have to respond. So what we want to talk about is how we can help our teams perform better, adapt more quickly, and make better decisions when you're not present because they understand the purpose and the why behind their work. It's also more motivating for talent when they understand what I do has meaning, what I do has purpose. And it's not just the mission statement on the wall. It's a meaningful understanding of the things that I do contribute meaningfully to the purpose of the organization, and it's down at a personal level. Or the things that I do, I understand why I do them, so it doesn't feel like just checking boxes or doing things for no reason. So what we want to do is take some examples here. So let's compare and contrast a situation. Let's say, I don't know if you remember Office Space, but the TPS reports. I need the TPS report done. Well, just telling someone I need this report, they'll comply because it's something you're requiring. Let's even just say it's a weekly status report. People will comply, but they won't necessarily do the type of information in there that helps you make better decisions as a leader or helps the company improve in its performance. So what instead you could say are things like, we need this report because it feeds a regulatory submission. If the data is wrong, we could potentially have a fine or a reputational problem. So we want to protect our license. We need to protect our credibility with our customers. And so accuracy really matters. That is much more motivating to talent in that they understand, oh, if I do a bad job here, it actually affects all of us because it could cause the company problems. The other thing that'll happen is you'll have an increase in accountability. People will double check their assumptions. They may surface issues when they see something. So the see something, say something. It's easier if they understand the implication of a bad report is potentially a regulatory fine. They may surface an issue that they're seeing from the data in the report, for example, and their judgment will improve around that. So they will go beyond the checklist of just submit the report to meaningful action around that report and double checking and increasing their quality around it. Another one might be in a crisis. You have a crisis situation. Your incident management or your crisis team is checking the boxes by following what we call a run book or a playbook. And they're going down the list of things that in planning you thought might have to be done. But especially in a crisis or an incident, things don't always go according to what you thought might happen. The incidents take different turns, and you have to be able to pivot and respond and react accordingly as information changes. And in a crisis, information may actually change quickly. So a team that just follows the run book and they go line by line through that run book, they may wait to escalate for approvals to change course. They may optimize for compliance to the run book instead of time to recover or getting things up and running faster for customers. And they might just actually CYA, right? Look out for number one and make sure they don't do anything that gets them in trouble. However, an alternative example is, let's say I have a ransomware event and you're on a clock in a ransomware event. Things are usually, data's being held hostage usually for crypto. That's the typical scenario. And what you want to do is figure out very quickly if you have to pay that ransom or if you can take the downtime created by the data being held hostage, what data is actually at risk. Maybe it's not data that's too problematic. But really what you're trying to do is give people enough information around that run book or that playbook to say, what is the primary objective? Well, the primary objective is to restore your service safely and protect your customers. If that is my primary objective versus pay the ransom no matter what, then they have a better chance of doing the things in the moment to pivot around that core outcome. For example, if you said, I don't know if we're going to optimize around paying a ransom versus let's just get the site up, they may actually delay in doing the work on the site up and spend too much time assessing the question of pay the ransom or not. But in principle, most consultants will tell you, do everything possible not to pay the ransom, optimize for ways that you can restore service, and even in the planning process, you optimize for your contingency plans in case your data gets held hostage or your site gets taken down. So even in the planning stages, knowing that primary objective will help people plan to that more optimal scenario of we're not going to pay the ransom. We're going to actually get the site up. How could we do that if we already got attacked? So they can deviate from a process and document it later. They can escalate quicker because they actually understand the primary objective. Don't pay the ransom. Get the site up, get customers protected. That's our priority. We're going to do everything not to pay the ransom. So that way they can coordinate more effectively across silos as well as they work toward the job number one, restore services, protect the customers. Number 3 example is something like, I have a very strategic change, and a lot of changes lately might be around, we are restructuring and we're realigning to improve efficiency and align our resources. That's a pretty corporate speak type of thing you might hear in a company. And what people really hear is, my job might be at risk, decisions might be political, and I may need to just keep my head down because I don't know what that really means when you tell me we're restructuring to realign resources and be more efficient. That feels very threatening in an environment. What you could actually say is something more like, the current structure we have is slowing down our decision making and it is creating risk when we have bad things go wrong, like things go sideways, or we have a risk during incidents. So the change we're making is to deliver the outcomes of speed and accountability. We're trying to increase how we have decisions with clear owners, and we're trying to decrease or increase our speed, decrease the time of getting things done. So that could look like we're really not looking to get rid of people. What we're looking to do is streamline how everyone works so that there's less gates in the process. There are fewer people who have to be involved in decisions. And in order to do that, we have to make some structural changes in the organization because that will increase our speed to get our work done. And if we don't fix it now, we're going to suffer even more as things happen in the ecosystem, like AI coming in as an example, more competitors coming in. So the longer we wait on this, the harder it is going to be for the company to pivot. So we're restructuring to get that speed and efficiency through these specific mechanisms. So that could be a way that people may still struggle with realignment, still could mean, for example, layoffs. And they may still struggle with what that could imply or infer for their particular personal situation. However, it is still more explainable, and it helps people understand like the underlying why. I could see probably where I may be one of those people impacted more quickly versus, no, I'm probably okay. What an effective leader may instead say is, our current structure slows our decision making and we're creating more risk in getting product to market. So the change we're making is to increase our speed. Let's move faster and increase our accountability. Let's make decisions with key decision makers so we know at the end of the day who's accountable for driving the result instead of consensus by hundreds or large group decision making. So if we don't fix that now, when the pressure hits, it's going to be even harder. as market conditions change, as we have more competition, as AI enters the environment, it changes how we're going to have to operate. So let's make these changes now to increase our speed, to go faster, and have more accountability in the process. And what this will look like is we're going to streamline how the decision-making process works. We're going to have tighter DACs. This person, we're going to have single owners of responsibilities and approvers of responsibilities. We are no longer going to have multiple organizations doing similar things. We're going to consolidate and streamline those processes. We're going to take gates out of the process. We're going to remove checkpoints that seem to be hindering. And the way we do that is to restructure and realign the organizations. So those are some ways you can help give more detail around the why of a change and remove some of that ambiguity that causes fear, uncertainty, and doubt, which we've talked about in previous podcasts. So people will better understand the problem. The resistance may turn into better engagement because they see places where they could actually help move faster, increase accountability, and the ambiguity dropping does decrease fear almost by default. So those are some examples of why the why can get you better results with your teamwork and with your overall performance. Now, what it does, it creates alignment without micromanagement. If you don't have a why in front of the team, they don't understand your core outcomes. If they don't know that, then you almost get into a state where you have to micromanage every step they take in every process. That is not only demotivating, it is not effective as a leader because it takes too much time to do that. So the why actually gives you more room in your own schedule because teams can make better decisions and move more independently without you overseeing every move they make. It also increases resilience under pressure. Like in our ransomware example, if the team knows we're going to optimize for service restoration and not figuring out whether we should pay the ransom or not, then they're going to optimize and put all their effort into service restoration as quickly as possible. And sure, at some point you might have to pay a ransom, but at all costs, we're going to try and avoid that. That kind of information helps teams focus on the right things. So they won't panic, well, should we do this or should we do this? No, we're optimizing for service restoration. Just move forward on that and keep progressing. If we decide something else, we'll let you know in the moment. Otherwise, your priority number one is restoration. It improves judgment because you're not just asking people to check a box. You're asking them to say, oh, the reason why this report needs to go out is because it has a material impact on the business. And so therefore, they will make better judgment calls around what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. Purpose increases accountability at a personal level. And then ownership. The more meaningful why that people have as to my position, my role, my activity, my work contributes to the why, and they can clearly make that connection, they just get more engaged. They feel more motivated to deliver good work. Because what we don't want is transactional work. We don't want people just, again, checking boxes and doing things for the sake of doing things like the TPS report in Office Space. We want to actually have meaningful engagement by our team members. They're happier, the work is better. And you won't have fear and politics filling in, the grapevine filling in, fear, uncertainty, and doubt creeping into the organization, the grapevine overloaded, because people are less ambiguous about what it actually is that's required. It's just clear. And they will optimize for success rather than their own CYA and safety. And we will have less burnout. People will feel more motivated. They will feel their work is more meaningful. And a lot of times, burnout is not really from effort. It's really from effort that feels pointless. So the more you can give people a why, they won't have that feeling of what I do is not meaningful. It's just get the job done. No, we actually are doing it for purpose, and it will lead to less burnout. Even if people are working a little extra, they won't feel as burned out because they will be motivated by the mission of the work, the purpose of the work. So here's a little framework that you can use when you're trying to formulate either a change or assign work out to people and start incorporating that why. Why are we doing this? What is the outcome we're after? So we start with a problem statement. We've discussed previously what a good problem statement can look like. So we start with the problem, not the solution. The company really needs to be more competitive. The way we're going to do that is we're going to come out with product ABC, and we believe that this product is going to have a big impact on our customers, and it will change their lives in this specific way. That's a problem leading into a solution. So the problem is we need to be more competitive in the market. To be more competitive, we need to change our product mix. So problem and solution, not just we're just going to push out this new product. And people are going, why are we doing that? What's the end game here? I've been in companies where we have pushed out new products, and I myself was sitting there going, why would we do that? It makes no sense for us to do that. Or the company was making an acquisition that to me made no logical sense because I couldn't even see how that particular company fit with the core mission of the parent company. And I would be scratching my head going, doesn't make any sense to me. But if you start with we made this acquisition, we have this problem in the marketplace. In order for us to solve this competitive gap of ABC, we are acquiring this company so that it will fit into the mix in this way. So we start with a problem statement. What problem are we solving? Why does it have an impact? And what happens if we don't solve it? And it can be, again, as simple as, doesn't have to be some big strategy change or product change. It could be as simple as, we're going to now do this new process or this new step in this process. A really good example is we used to do voice of customer and voice of merchant at a company I worked for previously. And the problem we were trying to solve was we were going to product teams and saying, we need to have this specific product changed and, put the requirement in. But those requirements were up against a million of the requirements and priorities that they had for driving revenue or other things. But what we did instead was we said, okay, the problem we're trying to solve is it's costing us this much money to take these types of contacts. And if we can avoid these contacts, it will save the company this much money. And more importantly, we believe it will drive our net promoter score for our customers by this amount. And customers will be happier. They will use our products more often. So the problem we're trying to solve is customer dissatisfaction and cost to the company. Then we could talk about, we've put these requirements forward and they will contribute to our overall goal in this way. So why does it have impact is a key thing, and how much impact is something having, it's a key thing. So the problem statement being factored around impact is also very important. And then what happens if we don't solve it? Well, we are churning customers at X% rate because they are getting so frustrated with the product, they are just walking away and leaving and going to our competitors. That's a pretty important why. And you can be part of solving that, because if we solve this particular product requirement, we move the needle on keeping customers, saving money, and driving up our NPS. That's pretty motivating to know you're driving something that material. So then we're saying consequences clearly and responsibly. The consequences of not doing something is part of the problem statement. So then we go to connect the why to the team's role and the individual's role. So why does this matter? Well, this product specifically is having this kind of impact on our customers and our bottom line. And your team has actually got the ability to drive the change into the product that would make the difference for solving this problem. So if it's not abstract and they can clearly see, oh, we're probably the only ones that can solve this, it will drive action because it's relevant to what they do and how they do it. So we translate that into why this specific team matters, why your role in this matters, why the decisions you make and the priorities you set matter, and what is different if you actually succeed at this. And I'll tell you, the bigger the project, the really, really big high stakes initiatives that I've run, people understanding that what does it look like? What does success look like? And being able to describe that very visually and very concretely is very motivating for people to know, while we're taking on this really big thing, and I'm inspired to do it because it's a challenge. And if we succeed, this is the meaning it's going to have. That is huge for people to do that. And then the fourth one, repeat it until you're tired of hearing it. So it's just like in advertising, you have to repeat, what is the problem? What is the impact? What does success look like? If we're how does that look? If we're successful, how does that look? So that is a key piece of repeat, repeat, repeat. You'll get bored of saying it over and over again, but repetition will help it stick. And lastly, model decisions that reflect working against the why, meaning working for the why. So if we say, hey, this is really important to do something for this reason, then we need to model what that looks like and make decisions and make them pretty publicly. Oh, I could have made this decision in this moment, but I'm going to make this other decision because it really supports our objective and our success criteria. So for example, I could have said in the context situation, hey, our merchants are expressing concern about this product feature, for example. And then if I'm in the background saying, well, yeah, we want to fix that product, but we're over here and we're going to say, no, let's do this other thing instead. I'm immediately defeating the priority in people's minds. So you'll kill the credibility of the outcome. You have to stick to your priorities and stick to what you say is important and what impacts you're trying to mitigate and what success looks like. You don't want to in any way undermine that by your actions and by future decisions. So know yourself. What are the priorities that we're working towards as a company, as an organization, as a team, and as an individual? How do I need to be prioritizing my own decisions and my own actions to align with that order of priority? So establishing this, it's not one-time communication. This is an ongoing act of leadership to establish the why. And it is in many moments that people need the why. They need it at the macro level of the company has these whys for why it exists, for what our customers need, and for what we need to go towards as priorities. All the way down to my daily activity of I do my work in a prioritized way. It goes and links up to these higher level priorities, and I can prioritize my work because I understand the why of everything that's going on in the company. And maybe not everything is a little of exaggeration, but I know the big moving parts and I have linked myself to those moving parts. And as a leader, I'm helping every day to reinforce what are the priorities, what do we need to accomplish, and why do we need to accomplish that? And in the process, get rid of a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We get rid of the FUD factor when we talk about the why. So here's hoping that this was helpful to you. And in high stakes environments, clarity is always, always a kindness to your teams. Providing the why is a way to be clear with people and to help them be more successful in their own roles. So if you are interested in more information on this, visit us at resilientfoundations.com. And if you want to see more of this type of content on your feed, hit like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for joining us today.